Hi, everybody. I am Sammy Hammond. I'm an SOS trained speech and language therapist and an SACLC lactation consultant. So, today I am going to be addressing some of the myths with regards to eating. Myth number one, learning to eat is easy. Yes, for some children, it appears easy, natural, or instinctive, but eating is actually only instinctive for the first few months of life. From around birth to around 3 to 4 months of age, babies have a set of primitive motor reflexes. These are rooting, sucking, and swallowing, which help them to eat while laying down the neural pathways in the brain for voluntary motor control over eating. From around 5 to 6 months of age, and this is where we begin introducing solids, these primitive reflexes disappear and eating becomes a learned behavior. Eating is complex. It's the most complex task that human beings need to engage in. It is the only human task that requires every one of your organ systems. It also involves every muscle in the body. So, for example, just to swallow, it takes 26 muscles and 6 cranial nerves to work and coordinate carefully. It's also the only task that children do that requires all 8 of their sensory systems, these being visual, auditory, olfactory, which is smell, gustatory, which is taste, tactile, vestibular, proprioceptive, and interoception. We also have to take into account how learning, development, nutrition, and the environment needs to be integrated. Dr. Kay Toomey has identified 6 skills that need to be established in order to achieve successful eating. These are postural stability, oral motor skills, jaw skills, sensory skills, hand-to-mouth skills, and parenting skills. Therefore, we can see that eating is a very complex task and involves a whole bunch of factors in order to eat successfully. If a child experiences difficulties or disruption in any of these areas, then their feeding could be affected. If a child is hungry enough, he will eat. He will not starve himself. This can be true for a certain percentage of the population. However, there is a small percentage of children that will starve themselves. If a child is experiencing pain or discomfort while eating, they will avoid that food or texture that causes the pain. No amount of hunger will be able to overcome this. With children that have a skill-based or medical difficulty, their appetite becomes suppressed over time, so much so that they no longer respond correctly to appetite cues to eat enough calories. Unless we get to the root cause of the pain, discomfort, or skill deficit, the child will not want to eat. So, for example, if a child has reflux and every time he or she eats, they're experiencing pain or discomfort, they will not magically start eating unless that reflux is addressed. So, whether it's with medication, with surgery, whatever the case may be. Myth number 3, weaning or feeding must be done in a stepwise approach. So they're general guidelines of how to go about introducing solids to your child. However, every child is individual and might skip some steps in their approach to weaning. These are guidelines that are given to us and are not definite. Each child has their own set of oral motor skills and their own sensory personality or sensory profile, which will dictate their weaning journey. So, for example, some children will completely bypass the puree stage just because their sensory system can't handle it, and they'd much prefer something like a soft solid. The role of texture progression is to provide your child with a variety of textures at their skill level and progress them to eventually table foods by the age of 2. In some instances, some children will stagnate on a certain texture before progressing to the next. Mixed texture or lumpy texture is often rejected by children because their sensory systems just cannot tolerate it. So for example, in this slide, we have a little guy on the left who is gnawing away at a nice big piece of watermelon, which is considered a soft solid. And on the other side, we have a little one eating his puree very happily. This is either a yogurt or a porridge. And no, neither one is wrong or right. They are following their own weaning journey. If my child does not combine textures, they will not learn to speak. So by the age of 2, children should be demonstrating adult-like oral motor skills, including a rotary chew, tongue lateralization, which is moving your tongue from side to side, a sustained bite, an ability to move the tongue tip to the correct place to collect food for chewing and swallowing. So oral motor skill development is important for speech development. And rather, a variety of textures is more important than mixed textures. So some children and even adults can't tolerate a mixed texture, for example, a stew with rice. And that's okay, but they can have the meat separately, the veg separate, the sauce separate, and the rice separate. But it's a variety of textures that they're eating. They don't need to eat those textures mixed together in order to learn to speak. It is not appropriate to play or touch your food, play with or touch your food. So children learn about food before it even reaches their mouth through play and exploration. Wearing your food is part of the normal developmental process of learning to eat. Children learn about the physics of food through play and exploration. How does the food look? How does it feel in my hands? How does it smell? How does it sound? And maybe even how does it taste? Playing and exploration also helps to desensitize averse or scared children. So if a child is scared of food or completely averse to it, we can't expect the child to put it in their mouth and eat it. It's way less threatening to have that child interact with, explore the food, touch it, look at it, whatever it might be, in order to reach that goal of eating. Being messy is an important part of learning to eat. Certain foods can only be eaten at certain times of the day, and only certain foods are good for you. So food is just food. It's not a breakfast food, it's not a lunch food, not a dinner food, not a snack food, and not a junk food. Food is either a protein, a carbohydrate, a fat, or a fruit or veg. While some foods have a more nutritional value than others, labeling foods as good or bad, or as only been eaten at this meal, is not helpful for teaching children to eat or have a healthy relationship with food. If a child eats chicken and peas based at breakfast, then that is totally okay. In addition, the so-called junk foods actually play a huge role as stepping stones in teaching children with feeding difficulties to learn to eat a wide variety of other foods, because these junk foods are typically easy to manage from an oral motor standpoint, and they have a large sensory appeal. Thank you.